That's yours.
Okay.
I'll take mine here.
So we didn't even get an applause to start with?
Yeah.
Come on, this is an all-star panel. All right, let me make sure I get the right page to start with. So, good afternoon and welcome to our panel session, Industry 5.0 Productivity, People and Planet. I'm Ken Forster, the Exec Director of Momenta, and we are the leading digital industry venture capital and growth firm. Today, I'm pleased to preside over an all-star panel. We have Sean O'Regan, who many of you would have seen this morning, the Deputy Head of Industry 5.0 for the EU Commission. And I apologize, I should have that slide up. There we go. Jessica Polner, CEO of Relayer, who was just up here earlier. Garish Junija, the Chief Digital Officer of Dover Corporation. And then Cyril Perdicay, Chief Technology Officer of Rockwell Automation. So over the next 45 minutes, we'll discuss the origin story of Industry 5, touching on some key trends of resilience, reshoring, recruiting, and the move to renewable energy. We'll also explore how industry leaders are weaving in the triple bottom line of productivity, people, and planet into their industrial operations. We'll plan a few minutes for audience questions near the top of the hour, so make sure you raise your hand if you have questions later on, and somebody will bring you a mic. So, just to set some context for this, in 2015, the World Economic Forum published an industry agenda on the industrial Internet of Things. In it, they outlined the phases of industrial Internet evolution from short-term benefits of operational excellence, if you will, to new products and services, to what is really important, the long-term transformation of economies, supply chains, and workforces. They also laid a case for joint action among three key stakeholders: technology providers, technology adopters, and public policymakers, addressing key topics such as sustainability, reskilling, and the shift toward an integrated digital and human workforce. In 2020, the EU Commission's Directorate General for Research and Innovation held a series of virtual workshops to develop a vision for an innovative, resilient, social-centered, and competitive industry, which respects planetary boundaries and minimizes negative environmental impact. The result was Industry 5.0, which Sean talked about this morning, a framework that complements the efficiency goals of Industry 4.0 by putting research and innovation at the service of the transition to a more human-centric, resilient, and sustainable future industry. In short, productivity, people, and planet. Now, at Momenta, we see the work as timely and needed, and thus have supported this work with our thought leadership and our advisory work. Today, we've set a new milestone, and in that we've announced the launch of our Industry 5 Venture Capital Fund, a $100 million target fund aimed at supporting entrepreneurs who are advancing new paths to more human-centric, resilient, and sustainable operations. As advocated in the World Economic Forum Internet of Things call for 2015, today our panel features those key global leaders from the three stakeholder groups. We have technology providers, technology adopters, and public policymakers. So to kick things off, I'm going to ask each of my esteemed colleagues to briefly introduce themselves, say a few words about their companies or institutions, and describe their relationship to Industry 5.0. And Cyril, since you have the end, I'm going to let you lead and we'll go all through.
Thank you, Ken. So I'm Cyril Perdicay. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Rockwell Automation. Rockwell is one of the few pure players in industrial automation in the industry. We operate globally in 100 countries. We are close to 9 billion turnover this year, getting closer to that. And we deliver product, technology, services, and expertise in the field of industrial automation and information solution, enabling our customers to achieve pretty much all the goals that were described in terms of better productivity, better resilience, better sustainability, because this is today really the trifecta of what industrial customers are trying to achieve.
Excellent, thank you. Garish?
Hello, everyone. I'm Girish Juneja. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Dover Corporation. Dover is an industrial manufacturing company based out of North America, but having operations in a large number of operations in Western Europe as well. And we build industrial equipment. We provide aftermarket parts, consumables, digital solutions around them, as well as provide aftermarket service for those products. Our industrial digitization journey started several years ago, and we've been through few phases. We've been through phases of taking silos out of our back office operations. We have built connected solutions for some of our products that we sell to our customers so that they can do more sustainable operations. We have provided connected factory operations for improving OEE, uptime, efficiency, and quality of our machining operations. So we've been at it for now 5 years. In the last couple of years, especially in 2020, we launched our ESG goals and objectives, which is focused on 3 or 4 areas, and I think they're very relevant to the 5.0 space that we're talking about. One of them has been energy usage by our plants and emissions, how to reduce them, and we have set some very clear measurable goals towards it. Secondly has been building innovative products that actually help our customers achieve the same end goal. So this is in the third group of emissions, which is emissions downstream in the value chain. And around people and talent, we have set some very clear and quantifiable goals around talent development, around training, around employee health and safety, and such, diversity and inclusion. These are very clear, demonstrable goals that we report upon. So Industry 5.0, to me, is a nice amalgamation of all these things coming together.
Very good. Jessica?
Jessica Pollner, the CEO and president of Relayer Company, a technology company that enables business outcomes for industrial partners like Girish just described as well. It's actually our 10-year anniversary this year, so thrilled to have been at it for the last 10 years. My background, amazingly enough, is to come from the industrial world, so I listened to what Girish was talking about with where he comes from, and I'm a little bit envious, to be very fair, but worked for a number of years around the world for companies like Caterpillar, Ingersoll Rand, and Thermo King Business, and in the plastics industry for Barnes Group most recently.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Sean O'Regan. I'm leading the team in the European Commission dealing with Industry 5.0. So we really were behind developing the concept, and now at the moment our role is very much networking with the other stakeholders, with industry, with research, with academia, and other multipliers to get the message out about Industry 5.0 and to support its take-up and development. Thanks.
Very good. So since you still have the mic, let's start off with the why question, the origin story. Why Industry 5.0?
Well, Ken, Industry 4.0 was launched in 2011, and I suppose from 2016 on, we were beginning to get feedback from industrial players and for those intermediaries working with industry that as the climate was becoming more turbulent, the Industry 4.0 approach focused specifically on productivity and efficiency maybe wasn't anymore absolutely what was required, that there was a need for an approach that not only took account of the technology but also took account of the workers, and an approach that could find a way of involving workers in the process of implementation of digital technologies in companies. At the same time, we were also hearing feedback that the role of industry in the economy and society seemed to be diminishing. It seemed to be getting cut off because of this focus very much on what was happening on the factory floor. And really a concern that historically industry has been a driver of growth and prosperity, and a sense that maybe that was being lost. And as well, a third factor was we were hearing, probably particularly from smaller companies, that they were really struggling with this very direct approach to digitalization, focused purely on the technology and adopting it, and that they were encountering problems of absorptive capacity. So taking account of all those factors, we looked at how we could develop an approach to digitization together with industry that took account of the need to engage the worker more, but also took account of the need for industry to be more resilient in view of the more difficult business environment, and also allowed these digital technologies to help also with the green transition and industry's response to the climate challenge. So we had a number of discussions, and out of that we formulated this concept of Industry 5.0, which Ken has outlined very eloquently there, and really what the aim is to make industry more human-centric, in particular, to make industry attractive again for the new generation of workers coming into the jobs markets now. We've seen the impact of the Great Resignation in the US. So to make industry attractive again for these scarce skill sets of highly qualified people with digital skills. So that's really what we're focused on, and also in a linked up way, applying digital technologies to help companies to be more resilient, to be more agile, be quicker at responding to changes in the market environment, and to use digital technologies to use new approaches to making their businesses more sustainable, both environmentally sustainable, but also socially and economically sustainable.
I was interested in Davos this year. One of the commentators said, who would have thought we'd be on the stage this year, 2 weeks ago, talking about industrial policy and see how much it's come to the forefront now, given all of the shocks we've talked about. And so it's a timely, certainly, framework there. So unfortunately, between industry IoT, industrial IoT, digital transformation, Industry 4, now Industry 5, right? There's certainly no shortage of terminology out in the market. And many of us as technology adopters, technology providers, have to weave through this and figure out exactly how to take these great frameworks and apply them. So what pragmatic actions can leaders of industrial business take today to prepare themselves for Industry 5? Perhaps I'll start with you, Jessica, and then we can go to Cyril and Garish.
Sure, thanks, Ken. And I, to be very fair and certainly honest here, I had to do my research to get ready for this panel. I was very much focused on Industry 4.0 or maybe Industry 3.0 or even 2.0, but to understand what Sean and the group has put together in particular for Industry 5.0 and what that evolution means. And I think, as I've read and as I've thought, I think to the discussion, at least we had as a panel, they're certainly not mutually exclusive, but complementary of each other. So a lot from the industrial world have very much been focused on smart manufacturing for a number of years. And I think a framework, if you put your industrial hat on, we talk in terms of operational excellence. So efficiencies, productivities, how do you drive that? I've brought over to the technology world the expression, what isn't measured isn't managed. And that's something certainly that I'm trying to embed in our technology company as well. But I think that gives a very clear credence for industrial partners as well, what they can use. The basic KPIs driving a clear efficiencies, productivity targets as well too, but really honing in on measuring those few critical KPIs.
So the first thing I would like to say, really in this transition from Industry 4.0 to 5.0, for me what makes the difference is people. And it's people in multiple aspects. It's people, I believe that when Industry 4.0 was launched, as you said, Ken, it was very much focused on technology, but almost to a sense where let's spin technology in front of people and hope for the best and hope that this is going to solve some problems. So we are going to connect a lot of things, we are going to move a lot of data in the cloud, and maybe something miraculous is going to happen and my performance is going to improve. I think what is changing now is really because of this economic context that you describe or this societal context, people want to move from describing things and measuring things, which is important. I think there is an important call for action on ESG started by investors saying that we believe that companies that achieve a certain number of ESG milestones as a better prospect of long-term sustainable growth. Okay, that's good. But I was in Davos 2 weeks ago, and what was extremely interesting across all the CEOs of industrial company is this switch from we need to measure things, which it will be like in medicine, we focus on the thermometer, to let's actually do something and act. And this changed the mindset on how you implement technology. Yeah. And I'm back on this centricity on people. For me, my first recommendation is try experiment on the shop floor with real people and with real user of the technology. Because if you are able to empower those people with technology, then what you get is not workers anymore. You get superheroes on your shop floor. Yeah. You get people that can partner with technology. You get a partnership between machine and people. And as you said, Ken, you get jobs that are more attractive, safer, also more strenuous, so you create a lot of different opportunities for this. So for me, my first advice is get it real on the shop floor with the people that are going to use this technology. Not the people that think about technology, but the people that are going to be actually in the driver's seat and that we want to experiment. The second recommendation is have a plan and work with partners. Nobody can work alone. There is a sum of competencies and capabilities that is necessary to achieve those goals that needs a village of people and a community of people. So let's work together to build that ecosystem that goes towards those goals. This is one of the reasons I like really the way Industry 5.0 is described, is because there is a call for action and there is this trilogy that you described, Sean, between people, productivity, and the planet, that putting those things together is important. Since this inception of Industry 4.0, the equation of everybody in the industry was productivity, yield, outcome, and every system was pretty much designed to do this. And now it's very different. Again, in Davos, conversation was resilience, productivity, and sustainability. I was on a panel on the net zero in manufacturing, very strong commitment of all industrial customers to go there. Not just because it's good for the planet, but because it improves resiliency, because it improves economic outcome of a process. So I think this is a great dynamic in place, but get it real. Work with real people on the shop floor and scale from that point.
Excellent.
That's a good point, Cyril. I'll echo many of the things you said. I don't know how many of the people in the audience are users versus technology vendors themselves, but what I have seen, folks in my kind of roles, we often get bombarded by a lot of technology, and it's really important to figure out for your business the role that you play in the value chain, what kind of industry it is, what kind of digital transformation actually is the right journey for the business to take. It's not going to be the same for every business. Same things will not be prioritized in cycle for every business. So each one of us who has to play these roles has to decide the journey for our businesses. And while we can take the help of a lot of vendors, eventually the decisions have to be made very much in keeping with what fits our business digital transformation journey. Second thing I would mention, again, echoing back what Cyril said, the digital talent and the change agent talent in the business are the most important asset in this journey. I would actually put the change agent talent to be even higher than the digital talent, because this is a major change for industrial businesses. You are really going after some deep held beliefs, and you're trying to change the way as you move from 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and now to 5.0. And so those change agents have to be nurtured, they have to be found, they have to become participant in this transformation journey. Without them, nothing succeeds. And the third thing I would mention is, which has obviously become very apparent since COVID-19 and everything that has happened from that point, which is resilience in supply chains. If any one of us here are in the roles like myself or in any digital part of the industrial organization, I'd be surprised if you haven't had supply chain hiccups of one sort or the other. So the aspect of resilience and sustainability is definitely in front and center of many of the discussions. How to do it effectively and how to do it efficiently is the problem we're trying to solve. So I would say those three things, in my view, are really important.
Taking off on your comment around digital change agents and Cyril's comment on superheroes. I've been mentoring a general manager of a automaker in India who asked not to be named. And as we were describing what 4.0 versus what 5.0 was, he said, I think we're already doing that. He said, the first generation we did, we basically, the management decided which robots we were going to have on the line and where we're going to have them, and people were effectively let go. So the next time we did it, which was just really recently, we had the owners of each of those assembly line areas, the cell, if you will, working together to decide what were repetitive tasks that a robot could do better, what were the flexible, agile tasks that a human could do better. And using that, we chose which robots we wanted to use. And guess which of the two implementations worked much better in terms of the culture of the company and productivity and efficiency, right? The second one. And so I think it's very interesting, superheroes, you say, right? But in some sense, you can say 5.0 isn't as revolutionary sometimes as you might believe it being the next generation, because people are starting to move in that direction already. It's a matter of getting the right guidance. So, Industry 5 focuses heavily on core ESG elements, such as resilience, sustainability, and human centricity. What are the actions that technology providers, specifically Rockwell Automation and Relayer, are taking to live by example in terms of ESG? And Cyril, we'll start with you and then go to Jessica.
Yeah, so first of all, in a company like Rockwell Automation, we are both a manufacturer ourselves and a provider of technology. So the first thing to do is to apply all those principles and those technology to ourselves, using our own factories, using our own process and technology. And the challenge that we face, like our customers are facing supply chain challenge, we face supply chain challenge as well to build our product, to build our equipment. So applying those technology to ourselves and asking ourselves, well, if we were the customer, what would we think about this technology? What would we think about the experience? What would we think about the usability? What would we think about the accessibility? I think that's the first thing that is important. The second is, of course, what we do is build on reasonably generic capabilities, building blocks, whatever they are, controllers, IOs, drive, whatever. But putting those different products together into a system and instantiating that system in some specific context. The challenge in life science are different than the challenge in the food and beverage industry, which is different than the challenge in the auto industry. If you take the auto industry, where Rockwell Automation has a pretty strong presence, we are working with the big names in auto that are finally managing their transition from ICE to EV. This represents a certain number of challenge, but we are also working with startups that are looking at Rockwell Automation beyond our products. They are looking at us in terms of what does it mean to scale auto production. You have dozens with all the other companies. I'm a small startup, or not so small, and I'm building new electrical vehicles. How do I scale? And this element of scalability for me is a very important aspect of digital technologies. You can always find fancy technology and make an experiment that will work in the corner of a shop floor and looks good when the next exec is passing by and you make a demo. But the tricky question is, next time when the customer tells you, this looks good, I want this in 100 factories across 3 continents, this is where reality or the tire hits the ground, as we say, hits the road. Because that element of scalability is important. And this combines with usability. I'm really obsessed, and we are obsessed in Rockwell Automation in usability of technology. I can take at one point of time we are going to speak about AI in this discussion. You have different ways to work on AI. You can say, well, I'm going to do the magical side of AI. So I collect a lot of data, I move them in the cloud, I build a very complex model of my plant, and I hope that somebody is going to be able to use it. Usability 0. Or you take another way, you say I take a machine, I take an element of a process, I embed the right AI technology. Nobody even knows it's AI, nobody knows it's here. Did Apple, when they sold you an iPhone, pitch you on AI that improves the picture of the camera? Not that much. What matters to you is that the pictures are good. So that's the same thing, embedding technology in the right way, sometimes even making technology invisible because it's so easy, it's so usable. Back to my iPhone example, nobody ever looked at the iPhone user manual. Why can't we try to do this in industrial process and industrial technology? Why don't we try to make technology accessible to a point that it's intuitive, it's real, it's not challenging the workflow of the people, the way they have to work, but it augments it, it improves it. Yeah. But it doesn't require them to think about a totally different way of working, otherwise they cannot benefit from the technology. So that's what we are focused on, and that's what I believe the industry should be focused on, to really get the economical and societal benefits of those digital technologies in this transition to a more sustainable and resilient future.
Just to chime in a little bit to what Cyril said too, I think most of us technology providers have realized that without the human in the loop system, the technology isn't so great, right? And I enjoy now being able to straddle the industrial world and the technology world as well too, because you realize how important that human piece is. And so as we design product, as we think about usability in particular, we also have to do it with our end customer in mind, right? So, and sometimes that's hard, and we talked a little bit about understanding how the mind of a software development engineer works, which is very different than the world that I come from. But to understand how an end user would use what you're developing, that the dashboards and the alerts are only as good if the data is being used to drive a meaningful outcome for the end user. And I think that's something that's hard to embed in, but that's really only how we can have those technology advances, is if we make it, whether it's shrink wrapped, plug and play, something that is so simple that we can take advantage of it at an end user industrial level.
One of the certainly prevailing themes at Davos this year was perpetual, if you will, shocks that we've had, right? There's been COVID, supply chain challenges, global conflicts, inflation, and of course now the looming fears of a recession. Really an open question to the whole panel. What advice would you offer to industrial leaders who are trying to weather these storms while also seeking to make their business more competitive through digital transformation? And I'll let you take it in any order you'd like to.
You want me to start?
Yeah, everybody looks at you. There you go. Okay. That's how it works.
Well, I think, first of all this conversation is about competitiveness. There is no contradiction in using different technology, trying to be more sustainable. All this is about competitiveness. The companies that are going to be able to embrace this are going to become more competitive, are going to become the leaders in the industry. If you are more sustainable, you waste less resources, so you are more productive. If you are more resilient, same effect. If you are more productive, you are also more sustainable because you use less resources to deliver the same outcome. So I think there is a realization that all those things are related. So my first advice is that do not fear change. Do not fear the change. Do not fear complexity. But again, get real. This is for me what is really important. This idea to use simple things to start. I can give you an example that doesn't look big, but has a lot of impact. We work with a water treatment plant in the US. It could be a water treatment plant that is related to an industrial operation or not. It doesn't matter. And they were looking at reducing the energy footprint because they were consuming a lot of energy. When we analyze the reason of this consumption of energy, is because there was permanently a very high level of aeration. And why there was a very high level of aerations 24/7, it's because in order to be safe, they were putting a lot of chemicals to treat the water. Yeah. We build an AI-based solution, closed-loop control, autonomous optimization of parameters. We were able to reduce not only the electrical consumption by 20%, but the chemical usage by the same amount. For an investment that has a return in less than a year, if you consider the parameters. And I have dozens of cases like this. It's not gigantic use cases. It's a law of incremental returns. It's that every single improvement you make, every single working on the people in the shop floor, I'm going to improve that machine, then this machine, then this machine, and then put them together. This is a snowball effect that you create that ultimately is going to give you the economical benefits that are associated to this transition.
I guess yeah, that's a very good example actually that you mentioned. So, I think it was Winston Churchill who said, "Never let a good crisis go waste." Right. So we've had no end of crisis in the last 3 years,
Yeah.
and each one, frankly, has been an opportunity to drive an element of digitization forward. Right. I remember COVID-19 struck February. This is 2 years ago, and we had our first remote board meeting ever. So remote work in an industrial company is not a norm. I mean, there are many tech vendors here, and remote work is a norm. But in industrial company, everybody comes in, more likely than not. So we shifted from that to now a more flex work schedule, and that led to that whole digitization drive, which today makes that possible. Beyond that, we had our remote operations because we had operations manager who couldn't come inside the factory. We still had people coming in making the product, but somebody is sick, someone is out of office. How do they still monitor that the productivity of the factory is going on, that if there's an outage, they can help it? Remote operations didn't exist 3 years ago. So that was one example of the crisis. Then last couple of years, we have had supply chain crisis, inflation crisis. Those have been great opportunities for data analytics initiatives because a lot of the data about supply chains lives in supply chain towers, and a lot of data that needs to be correlated with your products, your SKUs, and what they need from a demand function standpoint, it's sitting in other silos. So connecting those two silos and making useful decisions out of that was an opportunity that was offered in that crisis. And now as we look at how this year would turn out in terms of economy, it's a great opportunity actually to drive some of the other initiatives. We look at supply chain traceability as a sustainability initiative for our business, knowing how we'll deal with future supply chain shocks. And we are digitizing our commercial operations so that we develop stickiness with our customers who are buyers of our physical products but have options. And more sticky we are in a recessionary environment, more likely we are to do well. So I look at all of these as opportunities, at least in pushing different digitization initiatives.
Yeah, maybe just to chime in briefly too, because I agree with what both of you have said. I think part of my advice would be to focus on those critical few topics, and also to allow for the space of innovation. Right? It's very rarely that you see innovation come top down. And I think as we think about some of the challenge, whether it's recession, supply chain, inflation, the war in Ukraine, whatever that might be, we tend to hunker down and look internal. And so I would just encourage particular industrial companies to make the space for innovation, because a lot of that comes, whether it's bottoms up or from the field in as well too. And I, to your point, agree very much that now is the time to invest, right? A downturn is the time to invest, again, on those critical few, but really that will move the needle as we come out of a recession and you can hit the ground running.
Yeah, I would concur very much with all those comments. A discussion we have with companies quite a lot, and the impression we get is that some companies feel that now is not the time to move forward, and there's almost a sense they want to regress. And we're very much pushing that this is now the time to move forward even faster. This is the way to come out of these crises by doubling down on your digitalization investment, and clearly digitalization and investment are the route to competitiveness going forward. But once again, in that process, don't forget about the human input. And somebody said recently that data informs business decisions, but human input leads to better outcomes. So very much double down on digitalization. It is the route to competitiveness, but capitalize also on your workforce. And going back to what you said, Gerlich, see your workforce as potential agents of change that can help to drive the change process forward in a bottom-up way, and secure greater engagement from your workforce to the change process.
So doing well by doing good. Used to be such an abstract thing. It felt like a societal pressure, if anything, or an investor pressure, right? But what I've heard from each of you is how there's economic potential in doing that, right? And it's how to rethink your own business process to do well while you're doing good. So.
And I think, Ken, that's the most important aspect.
Yeah.
You know, you said digital transformation.
Yeah.
When all this journey started 10 years ago, you know, it was, I'm a guy in the shop floor, I'm running my operations. I have been an operation manager early in my career. The reality of an operation manager role is like Chinese circus where you have a lot of plates. You use this all the time, and then you have a corporate guy that comes and say, I've been to a meeting, you need to digitally transform yourself, and the guy is still spinning his plates.
Yeah.
No, it's different because now we say, well, if we work with the right people in the factory, if we work with you as agent of change, we are going to show you how you can spin less plates or maybe have the plates spin by themselves, and then it becomes a much more inclusive conversation because the benefits in the operation for the company are tangible. Yeah. You can start small if you need. If you work with the people in the shop floor, they know what is a complicated machine. They know where is the bottleneck. They know where the resources are wasted. You can start here. You will get return on investment. This will fund every other activities that you have to do, and you will scale from that point.
Yeah. Yeah. So for all of the bearish talk about economy and such, I'm proud that we actually have a bull in the audience here. Andrew Obin, who is our favorite Wall Street industry analyst, recently published Bank of America's 5-year perspective for our digital industry space. Entity bullishly forecasts that industrial markets will grow 5 to 10% CAGR in the next 5 years, so doing well by doing good. And while related data and analytics will drive 15% CAGR over the same period. Now, I know Andrew covers 2 of the stocks in the audience here, gentleman at the end. I have to put you on the spot, knowing Andrew's out in the audience. Or, as you both represent company stocks he covers, do you share his optimism?
Well, we spoke earlier about economic outcome. I think this is what drives that growth. Historically, industrial investment has been capital expenditure driven. I need to build a factory to produce this amount of car or this amount of medicine. Yeah. So it's a kind of little bit of a finite equation. You are not going to have more technologies than what is necessary just to make this amount of production. Mm-hmm. But all the conversation we have been having in the last 30 minutes, it's about value creation. It's about you extract value that is trapped in this process and you convert this value into economic outcome. Mm-hmm. And you convert this value between the benefit of industrial customers and the benefit of suppliers like us. So I don't know if the market is going to go in which of those numbers exactly, but I'm very optimistic on the opportunity because there is tangible business outcome. Yes. And if this tangible business outcome is paired with the right usability of technology, the right empowerment of people so that they actually use this technology. You know, not a black box you put in the shop floor and the guy looks at it and said, I don't know exactly how it works, I'm going to unplug it and go back to my normal way of doing. So if all those elements are together, yes, there is economic value creation and yes, there is growth in the industry.
Yeah, I think that's a good question to put in front of the panel when the investor is in the room. But what I would say is industrial businesses have their own cycle of growth based on the markets they're in, and they're not consistent across different industries. So I can give examples of some of our businesses that are overshooting that rate and some that are undershooting that rate. In general, though, the technology-driven transformation provides a step function productivity benefit to these industrial businesses in an empathetic way with the employees coming along with that journey. Companies that do that well will reap the benefits. We are seeing in our businesses that benefit. I would also say we are also an industrial software supplier, as in we have companies like CDS Visual, Systech, Third Eye. These are industrial digital software companies that are part of our transformation journey inside and outside in our customers. And we are seeing those grow multiple orders of, or in multiples of our industrial businesses. So that also portends well for transformation and growth that is going to get driven by those businesses.
So I've got one more question for the panel. If there are any questions in the audience, please go ahead and raise your hand and they'll bring you a mic once we're done with this question. I don't see any quite yet. This one actually is directly for Sean. So in both Europe and the US, we've launched major reshoring initiatives last year. The Inflation Reduction Act, called the CHIPS Act. Europe is contemplating something very similar in terms of their Green Deal. So My question is, how is the European Commission preparing Europe for the next generation of factories and, more importantly, that next generation of workers to man those factories?
Yeah, it's a very pertinent question, Ken, and we're really dealing with it in real time at the moment. I mean, what we're focusing on is really 4 elements that we think need to be ramped up in Europe. The first one is state-of-the-art pilot lines, and the idea is that we would put those in place in a kind of a hub and spoke arrangement so we can link in existing pilot lines to that. Secondly, a design platform which would bring together all the users community and focus on, it would be cloud-based, and it would provide expertise, library, and other information. The third aspect is very much a focus on the dedicated skills ramp up. So focusing on encouraging academic education in electronics, also encouraging universities to develop common modules so to allow for student mobility, and also investing in facilities, laboratory facilities in the universities, but also very much focusing on how industry-university collaboration can be enhanced to give students access to state-of-the-art facilities in companies. And then supporting all that would be a networked set of competence centres. And there we have, in fact, a ready-made model, which is our digital innovation hubs, which provide scientific expertise and experimentation facilities. So we would, in the context of the CHIPS Act, we would see them being a source of knowledge, of skills development, of training, and to bring the whole system of ramping up of our capacity for chips development and manufacture in Europe.
Thank you. All right, I don't think I see any questions. It's dark in the audience. So, since we have such an esteemed group, we're going to do a last lightning round. So, I know all of you like to speak. I'm going to ask you to keep it to 2 to 3 bullets for the answers, okay? So we can get through 3 questions all the way around in 3 minutes and 28 seconds. So, number 1, and we'll start at the end and work all the way. What 2 trends are you watching today?
Ken, we're very much watching AI, and not only the trends, but how we can actually apply AI much more in industry and also in research and innovation to really increase the way in which AI can influence and guide decision making. And I think the other trend we're looking at, reflected by the sister conference today, is cybersecurity.
I would have a very similar answer, ironically enough, but AI in particular, the chatbots, I am very, very interested in, and then cybersecurity as well too, and that probably comes from our insurance background a little bit more.
Girish?
I would say augmented and virtual reality and its usage in connected worker is an important area. I won't repeat AI because it's been talked before, but I would say supply chain traceability would be another one for industrial businesses.
I'm not going to be very original, so I think AI is really transformational in this industry.
Yep.
Whatever we speak about generative AI and the impact it can have on the idea of designing a system or coding a system, I think there is deep opportunities of transformation. But more pragmatically, what we already today using AI in a process, this intersection of AI and control technology, so that you can have, instead of having a system that perform tasks in a defined way, but a system that self-optimize permanently based on a business goal. So that will be one. The second one is everything around the idea of net zero in manufacturing and how to orchestrate, design, and support our customers to achieve that net zero goal. And the third one is cyber, because in the background of all this, you have opportunities, but you have new type of risks that are created. You probably know that 40% of the ransomware attacks target industrial customers. Yeah. So all this, what we have been able to describe, will not be able to be achieved if we are not robust, both in terms of technology and education, to achieve the right level of cyber resilience for industrial customers.
All right. So we have about 1 minute and 5 seconds. So I'm only going to ask one more question. And because we started off with Industry 5, we're going to close with Industry 5. So what one thing should a company do to prepare for Industry 5? And I'm going to have you go last because you're the spokesmodel. So we'll start with you and come back this way.
So learn from others. I think is important. This idea of it takes a village, a community, the ecosystem. Learn from the experience of others, whether they are in your industry or not in your industry. I think this element of learning, you can learn, you can transpose this in your specific context, but really looking what is done, what is real, what is tangible, and translating this in your specific context, for me, it's a good step forward in the journey.
I would say make it real. Most of the businesses talk about sustainability, but making real, discrete, measurable goals against which you can make progress, I would say that's really important.
And I would say focus on the people.
Yeah, very good.
And I would totally concur with that. I think companies on their Industry 5.0 journey need to see their human resources as an asset, as an investment, not as a cost.
Very good. So I put up some help on Industry 5.0, the EU website, and you can see that we featured a lot of these same speakers on our podcast as well. Yes, I used QR codes. So I listened to you guys because nobody wanted to type in those URLs. So look, thank you for our panelists, Sean, Jessica, Garish, and Cyril, and to you, our audience, for your undivided attention. So have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks, Ken.